Hola, welcome back to our channel where we study, discuss, and add knowledge so that we may know more and be more. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. It's a pleasure to have you here. Stick around because you will love it here. So let's have this discussion about ignorance and assumption. On the acknowledgement page of my book, I wrote this. I learned once again that ignorance and assumption are the fraternal twins that can mess you up when the chips are down. Yes, it sounds dramatic like that because the experience that made me write it that way was a dramatic experience of some sort. Yes, I'll tell you, that's why I'm here. The reason for this discussion is based on that experience. So let's talk about it. I think I shared it in a past video sometime. Here I was after I decided to start writing full time. I made up my mind that my debut book will be released on my birthday. So it was going to be a milestone birthday and a milestone achievement. I set out with will I call it idea or knowledge or assumption, with the assumption that I knew what it would take to finish the manuscript, edit the book, produce it, and get it ready for the public by my birthday. My birthday was in July, I remember. By the time I had my first meeting with my publishing coach in June, was it May or June? Only then did I realize that I had 5 more milestones to go before the book would be ready for the public. By this time, I had already sent out invitations in March so that everybody would start getting ready from far and wide to be at my birthday in July. I sent out invitations, and the invitation was titled Golden Celebration and Book Release. Suffice to say that as at the day of the birthday, I wasn't even done with self-editing. Anyway, long story short, I had the party, of course, but instead of a book release, I had a book release preview because the book was nowhere near ready. I had to just find a way to take the pressure off me, still give a sneak peek into what was coming in the book, and have a beautiful celebration irrespective. But that experience was because I did not count the costs. I took it for granted that I knew what I had to do to be ready for the book to be released to the public. Maybe I could have even tried to get you ready. Maybe I could have just done a shoddy job, pushed myself, just slap things together and just release a book. But did I want that? No, especially for my first book. So I had to just inhale, exhale, and decide how to proceed. But I took the lesson and I vowed never to let that happen again. So help me God. Because truly, ignorance is costly. It is costly. Some would say that ignorance is bliss. I beg to differ. And I'm sure, I'm sure that a lot of us would beg to differ. It's better to know than not to know. Because when you know, you decide what you want to do or what you do not want to do. It just equips you to proceed or to approach matters in a more sure way, in a more informed way. Because whatever you do after you know what is required of you in a situation, is you're doing it because you have chosen to do it. You have the knowledge, you have the facts about that situation before you decided to go ahead nonetheless. That must be the reason why the wise King Solomon went back and forth over and over in the book of Proverbs about the importance of knowledge. He said, get knowledge. With all thy getting, get understanding. Knowledge. Sayings such as, it's better to be safe than sorry, err on the side of caution, and all those sayings must have something to do with having knowledge before venturing into whatever it is. Anyway, ignorance is basically the basest definition is not knowing. An assumption is thinking you know. That's even the worst. Not knowing somehow could cause one to be cautious, especially if that ignorance is acknowledged and admitted. One could just be cautious and tread a little bit carefully. That's if it's admitted, that is. But assumption, because it is the illusion of knowing, one can just be reckless and do things without verified facts. Honestly, I remember my husband sharing with me years ago about the definition of assumption. That's like the most dramatic definition I've ever heard. Most graphic. I think the word is graphic. So his boss, when he was a much younger employee at the time, years back, this was years back when he just started working, I think that was like his second job or so. His boss, who was a much older guy, would call him into the office, and after talking to him about whatever it was, maybe something that didn't go quite as it should have, would say to him, "When you assume, you make an ass of you and me." Assume, ass of you and me. Honestly, there's nothing that beats that definition. Because that's what happens to the one who assumes. You make an ass of yourself. Because you think you know, but you do not have it figured out properly. You do not have the information. You don't have sufficient information. You do not have verified facts. And that honestly makes an ass of you. Let's take a moment here. Have you ever been in a situation where you were certain that you knew what it took to probably do what it is you wanted to do or get into the situation as you thought, only to find out down the line at some point that it was all an assumption? Have you? How did you feel? We're going to talk about it in the comments. Well, I just told you about my own situation. I just humbly accepted that I goofed. I was ignorant because I didn't have all the information to enable me make that decision about my book release, be able to set a realistic date. And then, of course, I assumed, because I had dabbled into a little bit of writing here and there, ebooks, articles, and I just generally thought, it's just right, in it, until I found out that there were several milestones to give you a professionally finished book that you'd be proud of to release to the world. Here is the thing. We always aim to do better. So what can we add to our power bank in relation to how we handle ignorance and assumption? What can we add to our power bank? I think that number one, just admit ignorance. So when the need arises, just admit ignorance, because it's easier to just say, "I do not know," or "I'm not sure I have this information." It's just easier. It takes the pressure off you. And then it actually makes you want to get the right information. It's actually a leadership skill to do that. Admitting ignorance doesn't make you any less, doesn't make you any smaller. It actually shows that you would rather know the right thing than just goof around. The number two thing is, if for any reason you had already set out and realized along the line that, "Oh wow, I don't think I have sufficient information for this thing. I don't think that I'm doing what I'm doing with proper knowledge." Take a break, pause, just stop, and then verify your facts. Go and get the requisite information, sufficient information, verify your facts before proceeding. That way, whatever damage you would have done or you already did will be contained, or you won't have to further damage whatever that may have been damaged down the line. And then number three, verify. In fact, the way to combat these twins, as I call them, these fraternal twins, is just to verify. Ask, confirm, double check, and just be sure, or at least feel sure before you venture. And in the process, if you feel like things are not quite as you thought, pause, verify again. Okay? So, number one, admit ignorance and then get requisite information. Number two, if you assumed already, pause, verify the facts, get the information straight and get the facts. Number three, verify. It's better safe than sorry. How did you find this discussion? Did you find it helpful? Well, even I, having the discussion, found it helpful. And by my God, I'd rather know than not know. I hope you've also decided that, just in case you find yourself somewhere in this discussion. So if you found it useful, please share it with someone else who will also find it useful as you did. And that will be all for today. But subscribe so that you can always be a part of conversations like this that make us know better and be better. I'll see you again, same time next time. Until then, adios.